A Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone, and this is another in our Don't Forget Your Gels podcast series. And we've got a session today with Ivor, who definitely shouldn't forget his gels. He is on the way to the Sahara, so we shall hear a little bit more about that in a second. Welcome, Ivor. You've got a fascinating story to share with us today. So tell us when you started running and why your goal is the toughest foot race on earth.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me. When did I start running? It would have been May 2022. So we are, I guess, 3 and a bit years from not being able to run at all to now doing something that has blown my mind.
Well, I can imagine that's. I mean, for most people, they would be training a lot longer than that for something of this magnitude. So give us a bit of background on why you started and why you've gone from nothing to this goal in such a short period of time.
Sure. I still don't qualify or identify myself as a runner. So I had a guy who works for me, still works for me today, uh, came to me in 2022 and said he's running the London Marathon for a charity. Will I or company sponsor him? And I said, of course. And then flippantly said, I've always wanted to run a marathon. And at the point, I was completely unqualified to even consider running. I'd just run a 5K at that point. So had no business thinking about running a marathon looking back. He came back to my desk 10 minutes later and said, you're in. I'd completely forgotten the whole conversation we just had. Had to sort of re-clarify, like a half or something? He was like, no, 26.2 miles. Which one? London Marathon. Okay, so it's kind of a big deal. Gus, remind me of the charity again. Oh, it's a charity called Dreams Come True, and they support kids from the poorest parts of the country with like severe disability and life-limiting illness. So at this point, like I flippantly, accidentally signed up to something that I'm completely unqualified for, and then for a charity that really kind of struck a chord with me then, and it's really just snowballed from there.
Wow. So this was for the 2023 London Marathon.
No, sorry, 2022 because it was in the October because they moved it because of
Oh, of
COVID.
course. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So how long did you have to train for that?
I would say I started running and training in the May. So I had 4 to 5 months. Was starting to become a little bit more active April, May time, but I would say, yeah, 5 to 6 months.
And what sort of lifestyle had you had leading up to that point then? Had you done much exercise? Had you got any background in fitness?
From school, university, early 20s, yes. And then from trying to get my dates right, the 3 years leading up to that, certainly through COVID, had become very unfit, was drinking way too much, way too often, had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Just to put a line under that, I would say the same relationship that most people have with alcohol, like going out on Friday, getting drunk, feeling rubbish on the weekend, drag yourself to work Monday, and it just kind of snowballed. So I was not fit. I was in kilos, probably topping out 105 to 110 kilos, whatever that is in pounds and stone. Very unhealthy.
Right. And what are you now?
Try to put weight on or make sure I don't lose any more weight, which is a really nice problem to have from where I have been. I
Mm,
would be in and around 80 kilos.
wow.
So
A big change.
it's
Wow.
it's it's wild.
What was that marathon experience like then, your first one? Just talk us through race day and the fundraising that you did and how you fundraised for that event.
Sure. So London Marathon 2022, no one enjoyed London Marathon that year more than I did. I, and I would fight tooth and nail. No one had more fun than I did. Um, I thought I trained pretty hard. I was running a lot. I'd stopped drinking. Was going through like some personal challenges at the time. I'm happy to talk about later. So I felt good on the start line. Stupidly, the day before, I was best man at a wedding. But again, I wasn't drinking, so I left at 8:30, 9 p.m. Had all my kit out and these wildly expensive running socks that someone in a shop had sold me. This is kind of a bit of a funny story. I then found in my sock drawer these New Balance socks that come halfway up my calf, and they've got the New Balance logo in gold. And I thought, people are coming to watch. They will look really cool in pictures. So I wore those, was going quite nicely for the first half, saw my wife and family just after Tower Bridge. And then shortly after, I thought my feet were on fire. Looked down, they weren't on fire, but they certainly felt that way. When I finished, the pain for the last 10 miles, 11 miles, from the blisters was nothing I've ever experienced before. So if anyone takes anything away from this, don't wear cheap socks.
Well, absolutely. And don't wear anything that you've not worn multiple times before. I think that's absolutely a key takeaway. We've all had instances of that. I did a race years ago in Hong Kong where I wore a brand new pair of shorts that were red by the time I finished that particular marathon. So yeah, we've all got a story of, and we do it once and you don't do it again. So you've certainly learned the hard way from that. That's for sure. So you finished London, and your next thought was do another race, or had you already got one booked in?
My thought after that was I've come an enormous way in a relatively short period of time. I don't want to stop this. I want to carry on. So I entered a couple of half marathons near where I live locally. Um, Throughout that, we got to know Dreams Come True and Emma Russ, who introduced you and I, really well. My wife at the same point had met Emma. I think she'd seen the journey that I'd been on. She's one that has always wanted to do London Marathon. So we ended up doing London Marathon 2023 together in the April. So we trained for that together. And then for me, it's like anything. You just start building some momentum and you go from one thing to another to another. And yeah, it's just kind of built up over time.
So did you fundraise for the 23 race as well?
Yeah, so we did 2022, 2023 together, which is really hard, by the way, because if you're a husband and wife, you tend to share same family, same friends, same circles. So the fundraising target is 2x what it is as an individual. So we had to get a bit more creative through that period. And I think it was the start of 2023. We also became a corporate partner of Dreams Come True. So we did some more stuff with them as a company throughout 23.
Right. So how did you become creative then?
So I think 2022 was easy because I would go to people and say, I'm running the London Marathon. Will you sponsor me for this amazing charity? They'd look at me, and these people, most of them knew me, would just say, good one. Here's 20 quid. So that was relatively easy because I think it was so out of the ordinary, or like beyond expectation of what people thought I would be doing. So that year wasn't too challenging. The following year was definitely harder. And also didn't want to go around to the same people asking for the same amount of money or 2x to hit the target.
Particularly because it's not the traditional 12 months between events, is it? You've got 6 months between events. So it's even harder then to go back to the same people, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I guess the two things we did that worked really well there, which is a huge line, my wife organized an awesome pub quiz at a pub near where we live down the road. That worked really well. It was also really nice to do something. I think we raised a couple of £1,000 that evening through a raffle and entry into said quiz. The pub was packed. I don't know how many people we had. I would say 50 to 70 at a guess, and this is going back a couple of years. So that worked really well. The other thing I don't take much credit for the quiz apart from turning up. And shortly after that, my wife did a bake sale with her work, with her company. And her company's hosted at Herts University. So there's obviously lots of foot traffic, and did a bake sale. And I can't remember how much that raised exactly, but when she told me, it blew my mind. Well over £1,000.
Gosh, that's incredible.
It was so good that when she came home, I had no cakes to eat.
Yeah, there's an upside to that result, wasn't there? The money and the fact you weren't going to get tempted. So that race was a major success, presumably, both from fundraising and a sort of enjoyment perspective.
it was doing it together. Got quite emotional talking about it. Was just awesome. And for anyone that's watched London Marathon or has completed it, like going at certain points, going over Tower Bridge, past Westminster, down the Mall, finishing, all of those things, just doing it together was amazing.
Yeah, there's something about doing it with a partner. I did London a few years ago with my wife, and it was her first and only marathon, and it was an incredible experience. I was in fancy dress, so it took me a little bit longer than I would have normally done it in, but it meant that we were able to run quite a bit of it together, which was absolutely fantastic. So I think if anyone's thinking about doing it with a partner, yeah, you do have some stressful times during training, but the actual race day experience is unbelievable. Right. So you finished London, and then what happened?
So that was London 23. And at that point, I was starting to run more like it was embedded in my like daily, weekly routine. And I was just way more active. Not because I wanted to get good at running or I really cared about running, just because it made me feel really good.
Mm.
So I kept going, and then can't remember the exact moment, but it was definitely something in me that said, I need to do something else now beyond this, to chase is probably a good word, to chase another thing to work towards, or I'm going to stagnate. If I stagnate, I go backwards, and I don't want to go back to the place that I was at, I don't know, 12, 18 months ago. So I think this was 2023, definitely was. I entered my first ultra marathon, also supporting Dreams Come True. The North Downs 50, I think it was. Again, I've done 2 marathons and a couple of halves. In my mind, looking back, I was completely unqualified to even take part in this thing. I also think ignorance is bliss for the most part. So I entered a bunch of halves. I did a couple of solo marathons, a trail marathon in July of 2023 at Salisbury Plains, which is a army-based training camp. That was probably still the hardest race I've ever done. I turned up, drove 2 hours down my own. My wife was in Portugal that weekend, dressed all in black, and it was 30 degrees plus, no shade, no shelter. It was my first trail marathon. So there's only a few hundred people on the start line. Post 4 or 5 miles in, you don't really see anyone. Turns out that was actually significantly harder just because of heat conditions and not really knowing what I was signing up to. The first couple of years, if I'm honest, even till recently, I have no shame in saying this, I have no idea what I'm doing. Just run and train as much as I can, turn up, go and try and enjoy it. And over time, things compound, and just trying not to overthink things.
It's been interesting for me doing podcasts with a number of people that have done ultras, and a lot of them have taken a very different approach. So at what point did you think this ultra thing's pretty cool? I shall just do the toughest one there is.
After the first run I ever did, which is mental to say out loud and it sounds odd. And certainly after my first ultra as well, just the feeling and the real like roller coaster you go through. It's very hard to describe. You get to the start line, you're kind of a bit anxious, bit nervous. How's this going to go? First 2 miles, you think there's no way I'm going to make it to mile 3. And then you go past the marathon point and you think, I could probably do this for another few hours. And it just mentally, physically, emotionally is just a really crazy ride for the whole time you're doing it.
It's interesting that you do a 5K, and at the end of the 5K, you think, actually, I fancy 250K. I don't think many people who've done a 5K think like that. That's quite an interesting approach.
It was just, this was again an event my wife organized, got home, I just had this in the garden, and I just had this like euphoric's maybe not, maybe a strong word, but just felt incredible for doing something. And this whole getting to the start line, running with other people, completing it, getting a medal, and this kind of like sense of achievement. So I just went to the internet and started playing around with like what are the crazy races? Like that's the way my brain goes to on anything. What's the kind of entry point? What's the other end of the spectrum that I just know nothing about? And Marathon des Sables kept coming up, and there's just something in my head that from that moment I remember exactly what I was wearing, where I was, that stuck in my head as like, how amazing would it be to do this one day? And that was it. It wasn't at that moment I put wheels in motion, planning 3, 4 years ahead to do it. it just stuck in my head. And then through all the support we had through Dreams Come True and working really closely with Emma, she was the first person I told that I want to do this. I've never actually asked her, and I probably should. When I said that to her, I don't think I'd even run a marathon at this point. And she probably thought, yeah, good one.
Just give us a bit of detail then on the location, obviously, the distance and how it's broken down over a period of days.
Sure. So it's in the Sahara Desert, which I have never been to, but from what I've read and seen, and I'm sure most people will be aware of, is not particularly hospitable. Very barren, very hot. So it starts in a town or just outside a town village that I can't pronounce, about 350 kilometers from Marrakesh. It's typically Marathon des Sables Legendaries, 250K over, I think you can do 5 or 6 stages. The long day you can break into 2. This year's the 40th anniversary, so they've added 20 kilometers to the 4th day. So that's going from 80K to 100. You have to take everything with you. So you're carrying everything on your back aside from water that you need. So you're going to be running, I think, for 5 days. You've also then got a day before the race, kit check, all of that sort of stuff. And you're going to get there the afternoon before that. So you're going to be in the desert for 7 or 8 days, and you've got everything in this tiny, flimsy little pack on your back. Everything from stuff for hygiene, if you want to take a change of clothes, all of your food, your sleeping bag, everything's on your back.
Is that everything that you've got full stop? Do you leave some stuff a sort of base camp during the day, or is that everything that you've taken for that trip?
That is literally everything. So I think we get there on April the 1st, I think. April the 2nd, you sort your kit out. So you may have like a suitcase or a holdall with stuff you've used when you've flown into Marrakesh and some stuff after, because you probably want to change your clothes before you fly back home. If not, you're not going to be very popular on that flight. Everything goes into your pack. You zip up your holdall and that goes. They take that to the hotel.
Wow.
So that is everything you need, from toothbrush, baby wipes to try and stay clean, sunglasses, hat, all of your food and gels and powders and electrolytes, everything. Right now, I think I'm in a place physically where I'm capable of doing something like this. I've still got some time to go and train for that. I think the big factors are the kind of logistics and planning of it. You pay a load of money to go and do something. They send you some stuff through and over to you. So building out like a spreadsheet of everything you need, getting all of your kit, making sure. And there's lots of rules and regulations as mandatory, what you can take, what you can't take. So there's lots of planning, scheduling, logistics.
What preparation are you doing then? How are you going to prepare for that kind of heat? And the challenges, of course, with the underfoot conditions that you're going to be experiencing.
So I think I'm seeing this from in 2 ways. Partly, I'm not preparing. I'm not going to prepare for it. I don't think there's anything I can do based on where I live and my lifestyle that's going to prepare me perfectly for that. So I think that's part of it, is just getting into a place where this is going to be crazy and so far out of comfort zone. I know I can't. I'll do everything I can. I'll get to it in a second, but there's going to be stuff that I just can't prepare for. That being said, I'm spending lots of time in the gym on a treadmill with plates in my pack currently, with as many layers on as I can wear, just walking max incline or marching pace or into a light run for a couple of hours at a time, to the point the tread on the treadmill is just wet. It looks like someone poured water over it. So just trying to get used to that. Spending lots of time in the sauna, just again, trying to get used to the heat. In December, I'm starting, I guess it's going to be about 2 months, a training center in London, Liverpool Street, where for all intents and purposes, they have a treadmill in a sauna. You can just rent out and run in there for an hour at a time. And we also have a trip to the Middle East in, I think, February, which is going to be like a mini holiday, but largely a training camp for me, just in the middle of the day to go out and just get used to running in the heat. Unless I were to not go to work, not be at home and go and live in the desert for a few weeks or a few months, I'm going to do everything I can. And then I think the other things I've got, looking at stuff like sweat tests for how many electrolytes and do I lose every hour when I'm sweating. So try to get some of the nutrition and prep down almost to a science.
We touched very briefly on gels at the start. The rule of thumb is generally with a marathon, you sort of take 4 or 5 gels. What do you do with that kind of nutrition? I mean, you can't carry huge numbers of gels around because they're not the lightest thing in the world. How are you dealing with that?
One thing we didn't mention, they're not great in the heat. I mean, the desert will get up to 50 degrees centigrade, whatever that is, well over 100 in Fahrenheit. There's a running store near me that is phenomenal for nutrition, and they kind of specialize in like multi-day endurance events. So I've got some stuff from there to try out. I'm testing, I think they're called Raising Phoenix. They can go down to like minus 50 degrees and they don't freeze. They can also go to like over, I think, 50 degrees and they don't melt. And it's the highest calorific intake bar per gram. And again, they're, I think, a partner of Marathon de Sable. So lots of things like that. So I'm not fortunately not doing it yet, so I can't really comment. But from January, I'm going to start implementing some of these things into my like day-to-day nutrition just to get my body used to them. As you mentioned earlier, turning up to a race wearing brand new trainers or brand new shorts is never a wise move. Turning up to one of the least hospitable places in the world with food and nutrition that you've never put in your body before also seems like a huge mistake. I'm sure there's people that have done it and do it and they get away with it. I'm not really willing to take that risk.
You mentioned earlier on about personal challenges. Have you found that your running career has sort of helped you get through any challenges and there's been a major mental health benefit for you?
Like you wouldn't believe. It's just, I'm night and day difference now to the person I am. I'm still the same person. What I feel like I'm capable of, it's literally changed my life. That no word of exaggeration, just like the routine, the discipline, just how good you feel, and just doing hard things. You're obviously not doing these things like every week or every month, but like just proving stuff to yourself, not for anyone else, that you start something, you work towards it, you complete it, and you get this kind of reward mechanism as like, I did that. Wonder what else I could do. Then it just builds into that kind of momentum ongoing. So it's like just night and day difference.
Yeah. When you combine it with the fundraising as well, that gives you another sense of well-being, doesn't it? Because you're doing something for other people. So talk us through how you're fundraising for this ultimate challenge.
Sure. I guess just on that, when I did my first marathon, two things that people said to me is the crowd will get you round and the charity you're raising money for will make training easier. I just didn't buy into anything that would what people told me. I was just like, whatever, I will run this thing and I'll raise money along the way. You're out and you're on a Sunday afternoon, you're 3 hours into a run and you're feeling terrible. And you think about why you're doing this and having got really close to dreams come true then, and knowing what they were doing, that definitely made training easier. It makes training significantly easier now, albeit it's still incredibly boring. So it's definitely made the training and preparation easier. In terms of fundraising for this, I haven't actively started yet. I've done a few posts and will continue to do that. I have a few people lots of people on my hit list that will be hearing from me between now and Christmas on a big email, which has worked well previously for people that we do business with or friends of friends or people that I know have some affiliation to one of the two charities that I'm raising money for. What's worked really well for me previously is also like telling the story a little bit and saying like, here's why I'm doing it. Here's the benefit I found. Just being quite open and vulnerable with what you're doing and why. So I'm trying to raise £10,000 for Dreams Come True, and the hospice of St. Francis near where I live, where my granddad was.
And you're fairly confident then with your network that you will, well, and your experience of having done this before, of course, that you'll get to that target.
I think, to answer your question, yes. That being said, and going back to one of the previous questions around like the benefits I've found, like I've done more things in the last 3.5 years that are like first time achievements for me. It just makes you think like, yeah, this is possible just with like basically hard work and discipline. Quizzes at the pub. Again, it's, I think, also not just asking people for money, because I'm doing a good thing for a good charity, but also giving them some kind of value. And then a few other things planned, maybe a golf day, which I've got cooking up an idea, which I'm working on whilst everyone's playing golf. I will run from the moment the first player starts to finishes. Again, just thinking of ways that you can maybe be a little bit creative, and for someone to go, that seems stupid, I'll definitely pay money to watch that.
That's a great idea, but I think the fact that you raised £2,000 on a quiz night, or your wife did, just shows what you're capable of, and yeah, giving people something back when they're supporting you is really important. So it sounds like you've got it pretty much covered. We talk about the sort of value that people see in what you're doing, and you would have attracted interest doing your first 5K and your first marathon, but you're now doing something completely different, which is on another level from a marathon. If it was a case of, right, I'm doing another marathon, then it does become more of a struggle, obviously, because people are like, well, I know you can do that, but this is a whole different world, obviously. And I think you'll get a lot of support because of that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a neighbor for 20 quid because I'm doing a marathon now. I'm going to struggle. I think they'll shut the door in my face. I think there's 3 reasons why I'm doing this. I think one, fundamentally, is for myself, and not necessarily ashamed to admit that this is something I'm doing. It's kind of a personal mission, goal that I didn't necessarily set out to do, to prove to myself I can do something like this. Secondly, for the 2 charities I'm supporting, and again, getting to know both of those over the last few years, seeing the work that they do and what goes in behind the scenes. And I think I'm also doing it for other people. Like, even, I know this sounds really weird for me to say out loud. I had a message from a girl just before this that used to work for me, saying, and I'm posting it more on Instagram around some of the training that I'm doing. And she was like, the personal journey you've been on, and being quite open and vulnerable with it for people who are struggling, how they feel mentally, physically, what's going on in their life. So doing it for other people just to share, like, I'm so unqualified to be doing this. It's a joke. But it's just, it started, I should probably look at the date, 3.5 years ago, and now working towards something which will be just under 4 years from like first official 5K race to this. It's, yeah, for other people to see, like if I can do it, anyone can.
No, it's a great story. The big question, though, of course, once you've done this, what on earth are you going to do next? Because it's a tough act to follow, isn't it?
Leadville and Western States. They are both 100. Again, I've never said that out loud before. Leadville, I think, is December 2026. Because running and ultra running got so popular, they're now very hard to get into. So those two, 2027 will be Moab 240. I need to get through April 1st before I start getting excited for the next thing. But they're 3 that are on the list of just why not.
So this is a warm up then.
I still think this is probably going to be not necessarily the hardest, but it's definitely the outlier, because you are like fully self-supported. Some of the bigger stuff, which is often in well, some in Europe, but also a lot in the US, you're doing 100 to, and there's some stuff now like 300-mile races you're doing non-stop. You can sleep along the way. You can have a crew and camper van, all of those sorts of things. So yes, they are insanely hard, but you're going to have people with you. This is a real personal marathon to start, that is a real personal endeavor and commitment. You're not running 10 miles and then you've got, I don't know, wife, mum and dad and all your friends in a camper van dishing out jammy Dodgers. You've got some lukewarm water in the middle of the desert.
This is the biggest solo challenge, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily know what, I've got 3 things I want to do after. I probably won't share this with my wife because she will maybe have a thing to say on these things. But yeah, I'm again, I keep saying it, and I'll probably get boring to many people saying this, but I shouldn't be doing this. Everything is wildly possible. I think it takes more time than what people realize. And going from being incredibly overweight, drinking way too much, very unhealthy, in a very, very bad place mentally, and then 4 years later, touch wood, will have completed what some say is the hardest foot race on earth.
And you will have raised 20,000 across the 3 or 4 years for Dreams Come True?
Dreams Come True, I think, will be over 30 in total. And there's some stuff there that through my company and some events we've done with Dreams Come True and other people doing half marathons and Tough Mudders and bits and bobs. I don't think I think about that as much as what I should, but is something I'm quite proud of.
Yeah, you should be incredibly proud. If everybody out there who was running events was fundraising for charity, the world would be a much better place, that's for sure. So you raising that kind of money is massive. Look, it's been very inspirational chat, Ivor. Look forward to having another conversation with you, hopefully, before you head off to the desert. You've got an interesting winter ahead, that's for sure. And yeah, it's going to be hard, isn't it, when you're out in the pouring rain thinking about running in 50 degrees in a few months' time. But yeah, good luck with the training, and good luck with the fundraising. And I very much look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Awesome, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.